Okay, so we are live and in session once again. Hello, my friends, and welcome to what is now episode 10 of the Frustrated Healer podcast. Today is a bit of a doozy with the freaking topic we decided to tackle today. We are gonna be looking at the problem with game journalism. Oh boy. It kind of says a lot that just the idea, the thought of game journalism instantly brings forth certain images, certain memes, certain ideas and perceptions about what you now expect from modern game journalism. Because it's like, it didn't always be this bad, but man, when it's bad, it's bad. And I know the internet does naturally have a tendency to blow things out of proportion, right? We love to focus on the negativity because, well, because it usually is the fun stuff. When you meme on the bad takes, when you meme on the strange writing styles you see in these articles, and it's like journalism. Like, you guys are supposed to be reporting on these games, but it's like, where is all of that? You know? It's like, how should I say it? Instantly, you get ideas of the whole, well, IGN always comes to mind. And just to set things straight, you know, just to put things on the record, this isn't meant to it's not a hate campaign or anything against IGN, The Verge, Vice, all of these other so-called game journalism websites. It's not meant as a hate campaign, but it's really more of like a question of why do we find it so egregious, right? Because we know that it can get bad. We know it can get bad. And it's like the first reply you'd always see on forums, whether it's Twitter, Reddit, what have you. There's usually this sort of idea, this reply, to just go, why do you care so much? It's just one person's opinion. Why should you care? Well, I don't think necessarily that we're caring so much about that one person's opinion necessarily, but rather it's more of how we care about the things we care about, which in this case is all about gaming. It's a passion for sure. And a lot of people would love to tell you that your opinion is wrong. That, oh no, this game is so much better than that game. Oh, this game didn't deserve that kind of a rating. Oh, this game should have been Game of the Year. Like, even amongst us gamers, like, we can never get along with our own opinions on these things. And it's just kind of wacky when it comes to these kinds of things. Suddenly it's like, oh yeah, when it's just one gamer to another, it feels like if you disagree with me, I mean, of course, there are less civil people out there. Let's not kid ourselves. There are definitely a lot less civil people out there. But for the most part, it's easier to kind of accept the other person's opinion and just say, well, okay, it just wasn't for them. And then you can kind of leave it at that and move on with your life. But for some reason, right, we tend to scrutinize with much more we tend to scrutinize with a lot more critical lens, a critical perspective whenever it comes to game journalism and these people who work in games journalism, the ones who write about games. And well, what are some infamous takes that you guys would know? Well, there's always the there is always going to be the now legendary meme of IGN's review of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, saying it was a 7.8 out of 10 under the claim of too much water. And that was memed to death because nobody could take it seriously. It's like, that's your takeaway with all of this? 7.8 out of 10, too much water? Really? Or what about the meme of how every single difficult game nowadays, right, has to be compared to Dark Souls? Like, there is no other game that you can use now. There is no other game you can compare to that is difficult. It's always like, oh no, it has a slight modicum of difficulty. Oh, it's like Dark Souls. They called Crash Bandicoot the Dark Souls of platformers, and I just wanted to cry, man. You want a real tough game? You should call it the Battletoads of something. Call it the OG Battletoads. Now we're talking difficult. You know what I mean? Oh, classic Vanias. And there was one time, I believe it was a Souls game too. I believe it was Sekiro, maybe, because Sekiro was the game that everyone was talking about. Because I guess 2019 was a bit of a slow year for gaming, I believe, and everyone was talking about Sekiro. There was these of course game journalists who were saying that, oh, this game is so inaccessible, it needs an easy mode. But it's like, does it really though? It's like, you should know what you're getting into when you're playing a game like this. And and maybe the game just wasn't for you. And to be fair, I do say that it's kind of been crazy now, but that hasn't always been that way. And it's like, it's not to say that the 90s didn't have some bad takes. You remember those PS1, PS2 gaming magazines where they would say these crazy reviews? They would be singing the praises of these other games that were like, oh, this game is the best shooter on the PS1, and then like, no, it's not. It's from this really obscure game that you've never heard of and you probably never played. So it has legacy, shall we say. It's not a new thing. Oh boy. Oh, you see. Okay. Alright. So, I don't usually do this, chat, but for the sake of this episode, I am going to show you guys something. It's going to be a little bit of show and tell. Because I found this YouTube review show from because of Kadikarus, the YouTuber, and this was a this was a show, and I kid you not, It is called Gaming in the Clinton Years. It is not political by any means necessary. And it's not necessarily a crazy it has nothing to do with politics. Okay? The channel is called Navigator, but it's spelled NAVGTR, which is apparently an acronym that stands for the National Association of Video Game Trade Reviewers. Something like that. And they hosted this show called Gaming in the Clinton Years, which they also abbreviated to GITCY, GITCY, which sounds like a strange, I don't know, sounds like a strange offbeat, like soda or something. Alright. So, I just was reminded of this because just the other day, someone shared this strange game journalism take on Twitter, on X. And it essentially said, it's okay. I'm not gonna say the name of the person because this isn't meant for defamation or anything like that. But it just says, I respect everyone's opinion when it comes to Baldur's Gate 3, but in this case, when compared to Starfield, I feel that Starfield offers me so much more to do, a lot more freedom. And I mean, there are things you can do in Starfield that you can't do in Baldur's Gate 3. I also can't stand bird's eye view in RPGs. Both phenomenal games, I just enjoy Starfield more. How do you draw that comparison? Baldur's Gate and Starfield are completely different games. Like, okay, chat. You know, I teach essay writing. One of the first steps to take when you write a compare and contrast essay is that the two things that must be compared, that are being compared, must be similar to begin with. They aren't even the same genre, precisely. It's like, I would have failed your essay if this is what you gave to me. You are not, like, you're comparing two completely different things. It's like you're comparing two different fruits. It's like, oh yeah, but they're both fruits. Yes, but an apple is very different to a freaking watermelon. They're not quite there. Hello, Lion. Welcome. So, yeah, we were just talking about these strange analogies that you see in game journalism, and how this person was comparing Starfield to Baldur's Gate when they're not even the same game at all. So it's like, why the need to even bring up the Baldur's Gate when it's irrelevant to your argument about the things you like about Starfield? Huh? It's like, come on. Clearly, it's like, if these are the standards we have nowadays, then no wonder it's seen as such a joke. Okay, so why did I bring that up, dude chat? Well, it's because I'm going to show you something now. It's an excerpt, well actually it's a full video. I'm muting the BGM for now. From Gaming in the Clinton Years. This isn't a political show, but I do warn you guys to brace yourselves. I don't usually do show and tell on this little podcast, but brace yourselves for the absurdity of it, okay? I only know of this due to Kadikarus. So, chat, if you were to compare any game in the 90s with Super Mario 64, what game would you use to compare to Super Mario 64? You know, a cartoony, family-friendly platformer. You would probably look at something like Crash Bandicoot, Banjo-Kazooie. Those kinds of games. Exactly. You're gonna look at other fellow platformers. Why would you compare Super Mario 64 with Resident Evil? Did you expect that? Because that is what they did. Brace yourselves, chat. This is something special. Turn on the display over here. Welcome to Gaming in the Clinton Years. Mario 64 versus Resident Evil. Okay. This is real. Why?
It seems as though the battle between the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation will be directly related to players' choices between Super Mario 64 and Resident Evil.
What?
These games are the beachhead of their respective systems.
What?
But which is better? Well, let's go through this point by point.
What's your...
Mario has camera motion during gameplay, but Evil only has it during the hands-off.
Why are you using the camera as an example?
Its characters, but Mario and his friends are mute. Mario doesn't require you to solve impossible puzzles to win the game.
Mario never shuts up in 64.
Actually, you won't solve tons of them. The game is virtually impossible without the hint book. So
guys,
what's the bottom line? Super Mario 64
already bottom line.
By a close call. It's more visual and immersive than Resident Evil. However, to our knowledge, no Nintendo 64 game has voices and dialogue yet. That's a big mistake, and we hope that changes. It's not just the graphics that players want. The Nintendo 64 is still very young, though. The Super NES didn't start off.
This is an early build of 64, by the way.
Tomorrow from the N64 today. We still have to wait for the 64DD, as it's called. This disk drive add-on will be used in the N64 games of the future.
Dear God.
All this talk makes us wonder, what's going on with Sega? Well, listen to this soundbite from Sega president Tom Kalinske.
Our technology comes from the arcade world.
Where did Sega come from?
Arcade games, advanced computer graphics in the arcade world, and run them on the most advanced PC today. But you can run them on Saturn. Saturn is more
I don't understand.
Than either PlayStation or Nintendo 64.
Why is this
32-bit processors in it?
Well, look, Sega. If all this is true, then why aren't you on top? You make a game like Mario 64, and then we'll talk. Until then, we rest our case.
And that's how it ends. Chat. That was just one of I think 287 reviews on this channel. They lost you at the first 3 sentences. Right? It's just huh? But I have one more thing to show you. One more. From the same show. From the same show. Paul, I'm sorry. You have to ride this out with me. I had to suffer. Now so will you. I single you out in particular because they reviewed Symphony of the Night. you need to see just what they said about this game. Easily hailed as one of the greatest games of all time. What do you think they're gonna say about Castlevania?
Konami also treads into sequel territory with Castlevania, Symphony of the Night.
Why is your
Although
opening
we found the
sentence
game
with
to
an
be a
also? You
disappointment,
haven't
we couldn't
set a
help but be
premise
sucked into the game.
yet.
The game
Oh my.
expands dramatically as you find new passageways and secrets within Dracula's castle. We think the game is fun, but again, way overhyped. This is a traditional 2D platform experience.
Way
with
overhyped,
no
huh?
in-game cinemas or anything to set it apart from previous Dracula
No
outings.
in-game cinemas. You say there's
The
you
unification
legitimately
of
have.
side-scrolling
What is a
action and
man?
character
You know what I
building
mean?
RPG elements is unique and impressive, but almost unnoticeable in terms of the effect on gameplay. The challenge is very high. We got far into the game, but still felt far from the end. The different areas of Dracula's castle are well
Wow.
designed, and in many cases,
Guys, that isn't
sight
a-
to see.
that is
The
not a
artistry
tough
and
enemy
detail
to-
is readily apparent, particularly in the backgrounds. The setting is very convincing, as everything looks Romanesque or Gothic. Besides the overdone side-scrolling nature of the game, we also
Overdone
have a minor
side-scrolling
complaint about
nature,
one
and yet
aspect
some of the
game's
best indie
control.
games are still
You can't
side-scrollers,
jump in the
right?
middle of a swing. Think about that for a moment. If you're standing still and you swing your whip, you can't jump until the whip has come all the way back to you. Now that's ridiculous, folks. Ridiculous and frustrating.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
really, that is
He seriously
one annoying
complained about
flaw.
the whip
So
physics.
much for realism. The Castlevania series often
just-
supports slightly stiff control, and this game is no exception. However,
No.
we should say that the control only feels stiff in that instance. Otherwise, Castlevania Symphony of the
Control
Night
C,
is a pretty
gameplay B,
decent game.
challenge B.
You won't not like it,
Like,
but it won't make you
huh?
sing out loud either.
Like,
then again, no
What
game does
what
that.
grading system are we
The
working on?
bottom
What
line
scale are
is,
we on?
Unlike Crash Bandicoot 2, Castlevania does not take old school gameplay and put it in a flattering 3D format. Instead, Castlevania just creates more of the same, but enjoyable more of the same.
Okay. First off. First off. Oh, let me turn the BGM back on. Hold on. There. First off. Not just not just expecting realism from 90s technology, but like realism in Dracula's castle. Are you expecting realism from Castlevania? Which is high fantasy? To be fair to the guy, he didn't write any of these, he's just reading them. Sure, but there was someone else, there still was someone who wrote it, regardless, right? It was just the narrator for the Flights of Fantasy Productions. Yeah. There were so many, but it doesn't change the fact that there were some really strange things being said here. The writing was just so all over the place. Like they couldn't stick to just one topic. We were talking about Mario versus Resident Evil, and then we suddenly diverted to Sega. We were talking about Symphony of the Night, and we're assessing realism. Oh. Whoever needs to whoever wrote those old scripts needs to take my class. To be fair, GT, they do feel like, it does feel like they could definitely be shitposts. They could just be parodies. Just memes, really. It's wild, no? And I decided to pick these two clips because they're a great, I guess, conglomeration of the issues that we have with modern game journalism. Like these were old clips, don't get me wrong, but it's still reflective of the problems we have with the things we see today, no? And it's like there are, of course, people who kind of want to fight back against it, right? Or saying that oh, you guys are too harsh on game critics. Oh, you guys are too harsh on game journalists and stuff like that. Well, just here's my take. Here's my take on it. I'm not saying that you need to be on the level of Justin Wong to be able to review a fighting game. That's not what I'm saying. Because you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that there's something wrong with that giant pile of metal in the sky that's plummeting at an alarming speed towards the Earth. You don't need to be a 5-star whatever food critic to know that the food you were served tastes bad. But when it's your job to review it, at least have some modicum of gaming know-how, because now you've made your profession look like a joke. Like, yes, people will pick out and continuously meme on, you know, Polygon's Doom gameplay. That infamous Cuphead tutorial failure, right? A lot of these there were these other cases where some journalists were found to have plagiarized their work because apparently writing how you feel about the game is too damn difficult. And all right. But when it's your job, you know, when it's your job, have a little bit of respect for the industry that you're working for. If they didn't hire incompetent people to do the critiquing, they wouldn't have gotten flat. Yeah, and it's not as if we're asking for experts to play the game. But if you can't even do the dash jump, if you can't even clear the easy levels, you know, the tutorial levels of certain games, maybe you should have picked someone else to play the game, or maybe you shouldn't have just reviewed the game. Because, you know, people will pick and laugh at it because it's absurd. We're not going for these reviews and these articles in order to make fun of them. We're going after it because we care about gaming. Part of that also comes how often these critics go into reviews on subjects they fundamentally hate. Right. And it's like, I get it. I get that certain critics may be a little bit over-scrutinized. But some of the times, the reason why we get so worked up is because where else do we find our sources for, you know, where else do we get good sources for game reviews? Well, of course, nowadays we do have YouTube. We do have small YouTubers actually giving you good insights on upcoming games and whatnot. And that comes off a lot more genuine. Although, of course, there are still going to be biases and whatnot, but that's kind of beside the point. The reason why we care so much is because we just want to have, you know, proper sources, proper insights on games. We just want to know, because gaming is expensive, especially nowadays. If I'm gonna buy a $70 game, which I wouldn't, just on a personal note, I would never buy a game at $70. But if I were to buy a $70 game, that's a hefty amount of cash. I gotta make sure that whatever the hell I'm buying is a quality product. So, especially if I'm a casual, right? I'm gonna go look at more mainstream gaming review sites. So if I'm misled into buying a bad game because people were calling it good, then you can see why we'd take issue with it. As is, you don't need to be a speedrunner, but at least have some semblance of gaming experience if you're gonna review stuff like this. Yes, because even in with what? Film critics, food critics, whether you agree with them or not, it's not even the issue there. But these people have, they have experience in the industry. They've had, they've worked in restaurants, or like they're entrepreneurs. They're, they have some qualifications to them being critics. But we are constantly shown these examples of folks who are just, we are baffled as gamers because, like, where did they pick these people up from? It's also that the purchasing money is not even half of what it was back then. Oh, yeah, exactly. Because now that the price tag stays the same, but, how far does your money go now? But regardless, right? There's all of that insanity around it. And on a personal level, this one's just me. I don't claim to speak for any of you, but just on me, as someone who does essay writing, who teaches essay writing, sometimes these articles just miss out on a lot of fundamental writing techniques. And I have also seen some articles where, the gaming journalists kind of try to fight back. And every time that I've read these, it always comes from a perspective of me. It's like, well, from my experience, it's like this. Oh, on my experience, it's like this, like that. It's like, sure, but it's not about your experience. It's about what your audience perceives from the things that you create. It doesn't matter how you necessarily feel about it, because that's not going to necessarily change how the greater gaming public feels about it. As fickle as we can be, and as much as our opinions change at the drop of a pin, no? A drop of a hat. It reminds you of how all reviewers hated this game called Rain World because of how brutal the difficulty could be. But the players loved the game for the difficulty, and the difference was huge. Yeah. The critic reviews don't only reflect them, but also the news outlets they represent. Absolutely. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there, Vicky, bro. Yeah. Or the God Hand review. God, that. Oof. I was trying to dodge that one, but... And yeah, because the individual journalists, they do reflect and represent the organizations that they come from. So when you're constantly seeing these strange reviews that are all linked to the same website, well, is it any wonder that your perception of these websites has also dropped in recent times? Is it necessarily overhated or over-scrutinized? I don't necessarily think so. Because a lot of the time, the points that gaming communities make against these reviews, there is validity to it. Not all the time, but for the most part, yes. For the most part, yes. Because, like, I get people not being able to agree on what was supposed to be the game of the year. Like that's its own little can of worms that we are going to check out in just a bit. But you know, people are like, well, we're generally looking at these games positively, and it's like I just can't agree whether game 1 is better than game 2 or the other way around. Or what about game 3? You know, these kinds of things. So, 13 years later, IGN writers tried to retract by publishing a defense of God Hand and denouncement of that review as missing the point. Yes, agreed, GT. They're allowed to have their opinions, but opinions can be asinine or factually wrong. Yes. There is such a thing as the uninformed opinion. We see that a lot, especially with how much time we spend on the internet. We are not new to the concept of uninformed, misinformed, misguided opinions. My goodness, we see them every day. We were talking about that the other time when we were talking about our internet pet peeves on the other channel, right? And it's like, man, we take issue because these are mainstream gaming websites that hold a lot of power with the influence that they have. You know, say what you will about IGN, yes, it's still one of the most recognizable names out there, especially to a casual gaming fan. It's only to us hardcores that we denounce these, you know, these places and these publications, no? And the reason why, you know, we care is that you guys represent something. Can you at least, you know, have some more conviction in it? Because, oh boy, I have a personal vendetta. This one's just on me. I have a personal vendetta against the Game Awards. There was one time, I can't remember what year it was exactly. It may have been 2019 or 2020. But there was one time, there was this one time. What's that? To be fair to these even self-proclaimed know-it-all gamers can also wildly miss the mark. Oh yeah, for sure. Both of them can be wrong, yeah. But there was one time where, Last of Us winning almost everything. It kind of reminds you of the Oscars, right? There are these movies that are such clear Oscar baiting. And you'll usually see it in the difference in opinion too. Critic reviews are raving. Audience score is plummeting. That's usually the mark of those kinds of games, no? And it's kind of funny how there are also games like that for the Game Awards. There was one time, yeah, Val and I were watching it just casually, and she's not a gamer, okay? My wife is not a gamer. Anything she knows about gaming is just, you know, through me. Even she was watching the Game Awards and was saying, why aren't they awarding anything? She legitimately asked me that question. Like, why aren't they awarding anything? Like, there are just so many ads. I'm like, you know, fair play. Fair play. And then there was one time I just decided to scrutinize it, right? Because in as much as people will say, oh, well, the Game Awards is just one organization. You don't have to worry about their opinion. But once again, it's what they represent. I don't mind so much if it's just some random, some random whoever on the internet who's just making a bad take. That happens on a daily basis. It's fine. But when it's now coming from a place that is marketed and framed to have the prestige, such as the Game Awards, and you're making bad takes, well, now I'm gonna take issue. Because it's like, it's hard enough for us as gamers to find a voice, to find a good voice. And for these kinds of places to have a lot of pull, a lot of clout, a lot of hold, and it's like, no, we denounce them. That's not us. We do not we do not accept them as one of our own. Kind of like that. And then I just decided, chat, to look into it more, right? I said, this was when The Last of Us won everything. I was so annoyed because there were a lot of games on that selection that were worthy of at least some other awards there. When everything was being won by The Last of Us, I was getting very suspicious. So I decided to go in, look into their website. I decided to ask the questions. Who is the voting jury on this? And how is it weighted? What's this all about? Right? I'm going to be quoting and reading directly from the Game Awards website, chat. Listen to this. I decided to look. Who is the jury for the Game Awards? Well, listen to this. We have websites such as IGN, GameSpot, Giant Bomb, GamerRanks, Vice, The Verge, Polygon, VentureBeat, and then like the LA Times. What does the LA Times know about gaming? Excuse me? Huh? Ars Technica, Digital Trends. Hey. And then Eurogamer, The Guardian, Metro.co.uk, VG247, and then all of these are more localized websites from other places around the world. And then I was so startled when it's like, Paul, get this, from the Philippines, Rappler. What does Rappler know about gaming? This is your voting pool? This is your voting jury? These are the people, these are the organizations getting to decide, right? What wins Game of the Year? And then I decided to look at the weighted voting. Okay? What's this? It's not that different from how the Academy doesn't watch any of the nominees we were making. Just give best animation to Disney. Yep. Okay. Now here. How are winners for Game of the Year selected? Winners are determined, I'm quoting from the website, okay? Winners are determined by a blended vote between the voting jury and public fan voting to a ratio of 90% in favor of the voting jury and 10% public fan voting. Fans can vote for their favorite games on the Game Awards, Why is it a 90-10 split? 90 in favor of the voting jury. This is supposed to be the Game Awards. Why don't gamers have a greater voice in this? Well, that was asked. And here's what they had to say. Why don't fans 100% select the winners? Well, here's their answer. Creating a 100% fan vote presents several challenges. First, Given that some games are exclusive to one platform, a public vote puts single-platform games at an inherent disadvantage over multi-platform titles. In addition, it is important that winners cannot be socially engineered in any way. We find that a blended vote is the most credible and authentic way to select winners. Now, by that logic, going by that logic, why didn't you split it 50-50? Because I get it. I get the 100% argument about socially engineering your winner, no? But if that's the case, then that doesn't explain why it's a 90, an overwhelming favor of the voting jury. If you wanted a fair split, why don't you do it 50-50? Why do you do it 90-10? And then also, it's like, that argument about how a public vote puts single-platform games at an inherent disadvantage over multi-platform titles. Like, that's not just a disadvantage to the gaming public. Like, doesn't that apply to the publishing, to the, journalists as well? It seems like a strange argument. It seems like a strange argument to take for justifying why the rules are that way. And if you do it that way, then yeah, why not just set categories for specific platform-based games? Yeah. When we leave it purely to the audience, we got those GameFAQs character battles that always end up with Link vs. Scud in the final round for 6 years in a row. No, I get that. I agree. I agree with that. But like, I'm not saying to give fans 100% of the vote either. Nah. But I just can't see the merit of a 90-10 split. At least put it to 50-50. If you really want to, if you want a blended vote that's the most credible and authentic way to select winners, then you put it at a 50-50. I get it. Don't give them 100%. Don't give the fans 100%. Nah. Because there is that validity there. But it doesn't make sense either to skew so much on the voting jury when the jury is made up of these people, these websites, these organizations that have historically proven to not be the most reasonable voices, no? The unbalanced split does kind of make the awards go full flame shady, and it kind of does explain why The Last of Us won all the damn awards if it's a 90-10 split. Because The Last of Us, yes, it's a good game. I'm not gonna be here trying to trash the game. It's a good game. Great, even. But you can tell when it was getting a little suspicious when all of the awards were going to it. It's like, feels like an Oscar bait game now. And it kind of made me resent it to an extent. Yeah? Of course, at the end of the day, it's always going to be about publishers, sponsors, and money. Of course. Yeah. Call a spade a spade. Absolutely. Yeah, Last of Us is good, but also Oscar bait. So that's why I've gotten so annoyed at why I don't really try to take the Game Awards seriously anymore. And it's kind of ironic how I just showed you guys a clip from gaming in the Clinton years, and last year's Game Awards was crashed by by gaming in the Clinton years. I don't support the actions of that dude who went up on stage. I don't think you're ever supposed to do that. But damn, that was a funny moment. Yes, Paul. Yes, Paul. I do remember that. We were just casually chatting about that, about God of War and Elden Ring. And God of War was winning every award too. And I'm like, guys, God of War Ragnarok is a really, really freaking good game. But it's like, does that mean it deserves every single award in the world? Like, come on now. The only redeeming factor there was that Elden Ring still won Game of the Year in the end, and it felt like the smallest of consolations, truly. Now, am I saying that Elden Ring should have won every award? No. No. Like, no game should realistically get every single award, no? But it's like, can we actually go into depth? Because a lot of these games specialize in multiple things. Can't we just have a show where we recognize, right? Where we recognize the greatness of the games that are presented to us and not just go with mainstream bandwagoning. Because that's where it gets frustrating. Man. Was it that year where Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima were every award? Yeah, that was the one. Yes, they were getting salty over Tsushima winning the fan vote. For me, it's like, if the fan vote is so overwhelming in one way, I think that's why it should be 50-50. Because then, it's just essentially a jury that's deciding everything. Yeah, critics tend to get really bitter when the general audience doesn't agree with them. I know. And it's like, what? Here you guys are with terrible criticisms and you can't take the heat yourself? I'm sorry, but when you put yourself up there, you're also opening yourself up to scrutiny. And if you can't take it, I don't think this is the job for you. All I'm saying. If you don't have the conviction to stand on the things you say, if you're gonna get real defensive and real bitter, real petty about it, well, you might be in the wrong place. Welcome to the internet. Yeah, we call them out because they feel so detached from reality. We call them out because it's so. Sometimes some of these guys feel like they're being contrarian for the sake of getting controversy clicks. Which is why it's so rare for you to have a game where, like on Metacritic, you got audience over here and critic score over here too. That's how you know it's an overwhelmingly good game. But you will see the disparities. Audience loves it, critics hate it. I'm gonna go for that game that the audience loved. Versus a game that all the critics love. Audiences hated it? I am not. I'm not watching that. Quick example on the movie industry. Do you guys remember Venom? Now, Venom wasn't the greatest thing ever created. It was a good movie though. It was fun. It was chaotic. It did what it needed to do as a movie. Critics absolutely hated it. The audience absolutely loved it. Val and I watched it. I'm like, I don't know what those critics were saying. Venom was hella fun, man. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So then it's like, it becomes tough, no? It becomes tough. Because I've had it. I've had the personal experience. Picking up games based on how all these mainstream review channels, well, not even review channels, rather mainstream gaming journalism sites all highly rated this game. I played it, thought it was overrated, decided, or was not for me. Then I saw how audiences rated it, and it's like, ooh. I don't even recall what that game was anymore. I think part of me just like removed it from my memory. It was something I bought on Steam. And man, Steam reviews are in themselves also crazy. But, you know, for all the wacky stuff that happens on Steam, it's good that there's an aggregate, you know, rating. and you can tell when a game has really messed up. When it's like, how's the game? Overly positive. Recent reviews, mixed. Ooh. Exactly. Now you base your next gaming choices on player reviews. Absolutely. And while the gaming public can get very pitchforks and torches, kind of burn it down. When you also look past the sheer blind hatred, you're gonna see the points that are making the people angry. And that's where you can also make more informed decisions as well. Or then you'll also have those different reviews from Holo Curious. Don't let this review distract you. Don't let this distract you from the fact that Pecora bought an effing monkey. You gotta love the memes though. And then it's like 10 out of 10, but it's a Pecora. It's about Pecora buying a monkey. GP! The Overwatch 2. The flood of reviews. Bad game. And great X-rated content. Oh my god. To be fair, that meme was going since Overwatch 1, but I feel like people doubled down on it in Overwatch 1.5. I'm not gonna call that Overwatch 2. What? Seriously, what did they do to allow that to be called a sequel? It's Overwatch 1.5. They couldn't balance the original game, so they removed one team slot. 500 hours, not recommended. This is my favorite game. Man. So yeah, at this point, I know, of course, the game journalists are gonna be a bit bitter about it, but it's like, then do a better job. We wouldn't be scrutinizing y'all if you guys showed the proper respect to your job. Right? And that's why now the critic review, the critic score, it's not even considered anymore. We don't even look at it anymore. It's not considered. So yeah, when you guys just want to look for reviews, definitely we go to actual gaming channels that know what they're talking about. It's really a strange situation. It makes you wonder how we even got to this point in the first place. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, GP. Like I said earlier, we're not asking you guys to be on the level of Justin Wong in order to review a fighting game. But at least pass the tutorial level of Cuphead without making an absolute fool of yourself. And I know people, some of the defenders were saying like, oh, but you guys were taking it out of context. Oh, you guys didn't realize it was supposed to be a joke. Yeah, but clearly, people didn't interpret it as a joke. You don't get to decide how people interpret your content. If they see it as a joke, well, I'm sorry. You don't get to decide that it's not a joke by getting angry on the internet. The internet has decided your fate. And it's decided, man, game journalism is a joke. Sorry. But the thing is, if you guys didn't treat it like one, we wouldn't see it like one. All I'm saying. Okay. So, there's like a little tiny bit of a rant there at the end. But for the next podcast episode, I think you guys are gonna like it. Kind of goes hand in hand with the game journalism thing, and why we now have game journalist difficulty in some of those cheekier indie games. But the humor is mwah. Next time, our podcast is going to be talking about difficulty in video games. Difficulty curves, the Dark Souls-ification of every tough game. I cannot get over still that Crash Bandicoot was called the Dark Souls of platformers, as if Dark Souls was the only tough game ever created. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about about difficulty in video games next time, chat. We just talked about this on the Discord. Absolutely. And if you guys would like to hang out on that Discord server, the link is in the description below. Feel free to hang out with us if you'd like. The whole thing about Dark Soulsification is now an expression that infuriates you? Yes, because it just shows creative bankruptcy. Like, they cannot find any more descriptors or any other analogy to relate this difficulty to. Just describe how difficult it is instead of calling it Dark Souls. In that case, we can take a look into Rain World because that game has a reputation. I am going to, Kat. Now that you've mentioned it, now that it was hated by critics but pretty appreciated by gamers, that sounds like it's gonna be a fun look. Alright, you guys, so that's all the time we have for today. I hope you enjoyed that. I know this episode was a little bit more on the ranty side, but the thing is, I feel like we occasionally need to have these cathartic episodes. We need to let out some steam, no? So with that, I would say our session is adjourned. Everybody, please take care of yourselves. Have a lovely rest of your day, afternoon, and evening. Have a lovely weekend, and I will see you guys tomorrow on the reaction channel for the weekly roundup. Alright? So with that, this is Senator War Chief signing out. Otsu Sen. Take care, you guys.